Now that Superman has had its opening weekend, I think it's an appropriate time that we can start looking towards the future of the DCU. So today I'm going to be talking about where I think certain characters from the movie are going to pop up again in future DCU productions. This movie is quite self-contained and there's not really many loose ends or teasers that could signal exactly what these characters will be doing next. So let's dive ahead and explore what could lie ahead in the DCU for these characters. Oh, and of course, this video does contain spoilers for the movie. So if you haven't seen Superman yet, and you don't want to be spoiled, I'd recommend leaving the video at this point here. It would be nice if you could leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, even if you're on the way out. Being the linchpin for the new DCU, it's quite easy to assume that Superman is going to be right at the forefront of James Gunn's plans for the future of this universe. After stopping Lex Luthor and heading back to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman has a small encounter with his cousin Supergirl, who of course has her own movie releasing next year. Since Millie was able to film this little cameo for this movie, I don't see why it's not out of the picture for David to have filmed his own small appearance for the Supergirl movie. In terms of an actual sequel, James Gunn on social media teased this after someone asked him when Superman 2 is coming out, and he replied back to them asking to define what constitutes a Superman 2. We have heard that the Authority movie wasn't quite ready yet, so I think there's every chance it's going to be repurposed into a sort of pseudo-sequel to Superman. We already do have enough of a basic groundwork, with the Engineer being one of the antagonists of this movie, and the events of it could create enough connective material to rationalize the creation of the Authority in the DCU. There is also a big secret project that Gunn is working on, which we know absolutely nothing about. There's every chance that this has some involvement from Superman, but again, it is completely under wraps. There is a good chance though that this secret project is going to be a TV show, because if you cross-reference him calling his secret project his favourite thing that they're making at the moment, with a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, saying that his favourite thing is an unannounced TV show. Now, of course, this is just connecting the dots, and he might be talking about two completely different things, so take everything with a grain of salt. One thing I wish the movie had was more substance and screen time with the side characters. I think that the most disappointing thing for me was that we didn't really get a whole lot of Clark Kent interacting with his co-workers at the Daily Planet. If this was all some master plan from James Gunn, giving people just a taste of these characters, and leaving people wanting just a bit more, then it was done so impressively. There has been some talk about a Jimmy Olsen spin-off show, so naturally it makes sense for some of them to make some appearance there, if it does go ahead. I can envisage a mockumentary-style series where Jimmy Olsen is being interviewed, and he's bigging himself up like he's Superman's best friend, when, in fact, I don't think the movie really gave me the impression that they'd even interacted. So it could be a funny twist that he was just making everything in the show up, or they just simply leave it up to interpretation. If you didn't know as well, Darkseid was actually first introduced in a Jimmy Olsen comic book, so there is a lot of potential directions that this show could take. A lot of the characters from the Daily Planet could return for this, and give them more material to work with than they had in the movie. I believe it's safe to assume that the members of the Justice Gang were one of the many highlights for a lot of people after watching this. I have seen a lot of love online for the portrayals of Guy and Mr. Terrific, and whilst not as much as I've seen for those two, there is definitely some praise for Isabella Merced as Kendra. We've already seen Guy and Kendra alongside Maxwell Lord in the Peacemaker Season 2 trailer, which is releasing in August, so we already have a guaranteed next appearance for them. I hope that Kendra is more than just a cameo role, as she didn't really have as big as a role in the Superman movie as the other two members of her team, and it would be nice to follow up her story with a bigger role in Peacemaker. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner will also be returning in the upcoming Lantern show in 2026. He stated that he's dropped more F-bombs filming that show than in his whole career, so we can guess that it's going to be an even more amped up version of the Guy we got to see in Superman. Even though the premise for the show sounds a little weird, and it's not exactly what I would have imagined the first live-action Green Lantern project in 14 years would be. I'm still looking forward to seeing it, and hopefully if it does turn out good, we're going to get a load more Lantern-centric projects spawning from it. There are also talks of another spin-off TV show alongside the Jimmy Olsen one, which is a Mr. Terrific show, which is easy to assume that it's just going to be the Terrifics. We've already had a good dose of Mr. Terrific and also Metamorpho in Superman, so there you go, you've already got 2 of the members of the team. And I bet James Gunn is absolutely itching to get Plastic Man in the DCU as soon as possible. It could also be centered around like the T-Council, but that team is a lot more obscure, and more like an offshoot of the Terrifics than its own thing anyway. Another character that I thought was going to be featured a bit more than they actually were was Maxwell Lord. As I said before, he's going to be in Peacemaker Season 2, but I was expecting him to be in Superman a little more than he was, because he only had like one line, and it was on like a TV interview in the background. I think that a lot of people would probably expect him to be in the Waller show that's just coming out whenever. I don't know, there hasn't been any update on that in like such a long time. But I think most people would expect him to be in that because they're probably going to be setting up Checkmate. I just really hope that he's not actually involved in that at all. I'd prefer the JLI version of Max Lord, not the spy one. The other character I've seen the most love for online, I think, is Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult really did steal every scene he was in, and I think it's probably one of the most devious and hate-driven villains to ever grace a superhero movie. He didn't have some righteous task he had to undertake that seems right from his point of view. The guy just really hated Superman. So at the end of the film, he's carted off to the Belle Reve prison, which, as we all know, is an important part of the Suicide Squad story, which of course is also extended over to the Peacemaker show. Connecting these dots with the fact that there is a big Superman character cameo in Peacemaker, I am anticipating that this will be Luthor, and he's going to have some sort of appearance towards the end of the show. As we saw in Creature Commandos, Economos is still working at the prison, so it could be a tease for whatever's coming next for Luthor in the DCU. It makes a lot of sense with him being in prison and being surrounded by other villains, that this could potentially end up becoming a teaser for the start of the DCU Legion of Doom. As well as this, there's some of the Luthor Corp guys who were in Lex's control room, and we've seen them in the trailers for Peacemaker already, so I think that Superman and Peacemaker are gonna have a lot of like crossover material, and Luthor I think is gonna be the biggest part of the crossovers. Okay, so I'm recording this bit a couple of days later after I've recorded the rest of it, and this new James Gunn interview just dropped, which basically reinforces everything I've just said about Lex Luthor. So I'm going to play the clip and have a listen and tell me what you guys think.
Yeah.
So you have a through line, and are you building towards a big event, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not what anyone thinks. It's not what anyone would guess. But I think that if people watch, the next season of Peacemaker, they'll see where a lot of these things are going and have a little bit more of a sense of maybe what can happen.
Unsurprisingly, Ultraman is revealed to be a clone of Superman created by Lex Luthor. Whilst maybe not everyone caught on, I do think that they actually did signal the direction for this character potentially returning in a future movie or show. He ended up falling through a black hole where it's unknown what happened to him. And I'm thinking that they might merge the Bizarro lore and the Crime Syndicate. Since his name was Ultraman, and he was like this imperfect clone of Superman, and this like other universe that he was heading towards, I think that that's going to be like Bizarro World. Everything in the pocket dimension was oddly cube-shaped, and even the lava was literally made of cubes. And no, it's not a connection to the Minecraft movie. And since the pocket dimension was like the bridge between universes, it was like the space between universes, I think that the universe on the other side is Bizarro's universe. When will we see him again? I have absolutely no idea. But don't be surprised if he returns alongside some other new strange friends. I thought that the engineer had quite an odd role in the movie. I don't even remember what happens to her at the end of the film. Like I said earlier, if the second movie is Superman and the Authority, they can effectively close off this open end. I actually forgot that Frank Grillo was going to be in this movie until I saw him in his first scene. He's not in it a whole lot, but it's a nice connective tissue between Creature Commandos and what he's going to be doing in the second season of Peacemaker. And we know he's going to be hunting down Peacemaker in that show, and I think that sort of his outlook on the DCU is going to be completely different now after Superman. I think that he's going to have a lot less trust with, like, metahumans and then the Creature Commandos. So I think that when the second season of Peacemaker and the second season of Creature Commandos are both out, I think that we're going to see a very different side of Rick Flag Sr. than we saw in the first season and the little bits of Superman that we saw him in. Even though it was pretty much guaranteed that Supergirl was going to appear in this movie, it actually still caught me off guard a bit when she walked into the Fortress of Solitude at the end of the movie. We'll be seeing her again in that Supergirl movie next year, which I really hope they move the release date up for. It's wedged right between Toy Story 5 and Minions. May would seem like a pretty smart month to release it in, and there's not a lot of competition for the demographic they'd be targeting this movie at then. The film is obviously based on the Woman of Tomorrow comic arc, and they did change the name for the movie because that's what it was originally called. So if you want to get a head start on what to expect, then there's probably hundreds of YouTube videos like explaining the story of the comic, or you could just pick up the comic for yourself. I think that is all for the individual characters that I'd expect more of. Of course, there are a few that I didn't mention, like Ma and Pa Kent, but there's not really much to say about them because I really wouldn't expect a surprise appearance or literally any sort of like future story arc for them across the wide DC universe. As for the general direction of the DCU, my opinion is that they're going to be heading towards a JLI or Justice League International movie. Now in the comics, Superman didn't actually join that team until later into their run, but as with every comic book movie adaptation, I'm sure that certain aspects will be cherry-picked and written to make sense in the context of the universe. So there we have it. That was what I think is what's next for the characters of Superman. If you have any theories with your own ideas for what's coming next in the DCU, leave a comment and let us know about those, as well as your thoughts on the movie itself. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw here today, then maybe consider subscribing to catch our other content as and when it releases.